young ages like 2, 3, 4, 5, what were you saying about services for kids with autism and how or why it might be a little hard?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got to pick up our conversation from the spring, right, earlier today, and you were asking me and sending me some questions parents had,
Yeah.
and they were both actually both questions were from parents of kids who are preschool aged, and so, you know, in thinking about specifically what would help preschool age children and their parents, I think the most important thing is to get hooked up with your county early intervention, whether it's called early steps, whatever it's called, but go to your school district website or call the school district and say, hey, what's our intervention program for kids ages 3 through 6? That's what you're going to want to ask. What's the intervention program? Ask it on your neighborhood Facebook page, ask it to the teacher, whatever. Google it, early intervention and your county. But that's going to be the most important thing, because that early intervention program is going to provide you with an evaluation and an entrance into services provided by the school district. And so if your preschooler is found eligible, then they can start to receive services through an IEP even before they enter kindergarten, right? And what do we know? We know intervention, early intervention, early intervention. And so I think, both of us would strongly encourage parents to say, figure it out, get the diagnoses, learn about the diagnoses, right? Like, don't hope that it's just a phase, or it's just the teacher, or it's just being 3 or 4 or 5, find out, and if there's nothing going on, then great, but that's probably the best piece of advice for parents of preschoolers. And then, I think we always, Karen, we're so good at this. We always talk about, as a parent, what do you do,
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it. You're going to exhale. You're going to take the long view. You're going to say, my kid is okay. This is okay. It's going to be okay. I might not know what to do now. I might not know all of the resources. I might not have ever encountered a child like this, even if I was a psych major or a teacher or came from a big family or have 3 other kids. But you're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay. And there are people who can help. So 2 things: get your early intervention in place. And second, make sure to tell yourself that it's going to be okay.
I love that. And the reason I asked us to touch base on this call today is because there were parents who, I mean, here, this one mom, she says, my son's almost 6 and autistic. He's supposed to be in one of the best schools in the state, but it's been a miserable year. And she went on to say that your channel is a breath of fresh air to me. And I was just like, yes. Like, if you and I, if we can show up and help give a parent a breath of fresh air, like, it just reinvigorated me to come back on here and be like, all right, Dr. Russell, what else can we offer these parents? Another parent said to me, I was talking to a parent of a 2.5-year-old, and I was like, how's the summer going? And she's like, it's exhausting. We're trying to do the potty training thing because they're going to go to the early intervention school because they need it for the autism, right? And she's like, I it's just exhausting. And so one of the reasons for us talking right now is I really wanted to bring you on and to share with parents or someone who's listening who might know someone who needs some support at this time. And if you're listening or you know someone who's just really struggling in this area, or just dealing with the whole mental process of it, like, it's just getting you down, like you feel like you can't, or you're just overwhelmed, go to my website, www.educationalimpactacademy.com, contact me, and I'll either tie you to resources like Dr. Russell, or there are groups that I'm going to be starting to do some coaching with moms in the fall. So it's just another resource for you to have in your toolkit. So, Dr. Russell, maybe you can tell us, what exactly do you do at Russell Coaching?
Sure. It's so nice of you to invite me on to talk about this. I feel passionately about this. And the reason I'm so thankful to you is because what we do at Russell Coaching for Students isn't a service that 99% of parents are familiar with. And so when people finally find us, they say, I wish I'd known about you 5 years ago. Why didn't my psychiatrist send me to you before? Why didn't I get this information when we got, a psychological evaluation? And so it's so important. And this is why I make time for podcasts and Instagram Live, because we want parents of, we're going to call them, neurologically atypical kids to know that there is effective science-based academic coaching for their student that will help them in school and in life. So what Russell Coaching for Students is all about is working with atypical kids, might be ADHD, might be autism, might be learning differences, might be anxiety or depression, might be giftedness. Usually it's a combination of those things. Rarely do they come alone. And so our niche is that student who's wired a little differently, but has so much potential to be successful, but they either can't get motivated, or they aren't organized enough, or they can't figure out how to interact with the teachers at their school and practice self-advocacy, or everything is overwhelming, so they shut down, right? Or they don't actually know how to study and they haven't kind of picked that up from watching people around them. So Russell Coaching for Students offers academic and ADHD coaching to middle school through college students, and for kids who have some kind of neurodevelopmental diagnosis. And those kids generally tend to be a little bit delayed when it comes to this thing called executive functioning skills. And so what we do is assess their level of executive functioning skills and then jump in with them and work with them on building the skills that they need so they can achieve their goals. So simple example, right? We'll have kids who lose every sheet of paper that's ever been given to them in their high school, right? They can't keep track of their papers. The papers are at the bottom of the backpack. They're crumpled up. They're stuffed in other folders. They're
We're on
Cheetos.
the fifth organizational method, right?
Right.
Try something till it works.
Right. And the thing is, what's so frustrating about this for parents is a lot of moms can look at that and go, oh, I could organize that, right? But the student doesn't have the ability to grasp the organization system or the motivation to follow through on that, or the time in school. Like, something about that system isn't working for that kid, right? Most of the time what we do as adults is say, okay, you need to get organized. Here are the folders, the binders, the baskets, whatever it is. What we do at Russell Coaching is figure out with that student what's going to work. A lot of times what we hear is, I can't put anything away during the day. I don't have time. I'm rushed. I'm catching the last bit of the direction in class. I can't do anything during the day to get organized. Okay, so let's solve that problem with setting up a 10-minute organization time after school, whether that's in the cafeteria, whether it's when you get home, whether it's in the locker room. There are lots of ways to do that. Another thing we work on all the time is task initiation. Kids who can't get started on things. We all know people like this, right? And it tends to be a little worse if you're neurodiverse. This can be an area where kids really struggle to get started. They can feel incredibly blocked. And so we all know, well, the first way to get unblocked is to do one little thing, right? But the kids we work with can't figure out what is that one little thing, right? Well, I still don't know if that's the right one little thing, or, but that's not what the teacher said to do. There can be some rigidness that comes with being on the spectrum, or there can be some distractibility from the ADHD. And so those things are really hard. So all these executive functioning skills of time management, organization, task initiation, task completion, what we do at Russell Coaching, what our coaches do with kids across the country, is figure out customized solutions for those middle schoolers, high schoolers, and college students that actually work. That's what we do, is we figure out solutions with the student that actually work. Because and I know there are a million ways to be organized, right?
Yeah, and what works for one kid doesn't work for the next kid.
Right. And so in order to really be successful at coaching executive functioning skills, our job is to have a million strategies, right? And to listen to what's going on in that student
That's
their school life, their family life. How
mhm.
does their brain work? And
Yep.
figure out stuff that works for them. Not endlessly saying, well, you need to use your multicolored folders. You need to get a 3-ring binder. You need to just carry around a 3-hole punch. You know, if it was that easy, they'd be doing it, you know?
Right.
And
And
so,
we as the adults have to become more flexible.
oh, well, that's a whole nother show, right? So
Yep.
that's what we
Yep.
do at Russell Coaching. I started 14 years ago.
Yep.
It was just me. I was in Tampa. I saw students. I was the only one seeing students. And about 6 years ago, I took the big plunge. I decided we were going to expand. I hired 6 people to train in my method of coaching, which is called connected coaching.
Right.
We expanded nationally. And now Russell Coaching is really the largest student coaching practice in the country. And we are the only one who specifically works with this niche. So we see typical kids and we see, atypical kids with neurodevelopmental disorders. And we are now also international. We're in Canada, the UK, Dubai, and Costa Rica. So when you have that kid, right? So who's listening? Who should be paying attention? You have that kid who has ADHD or they have autism, and you have told them, right? This is what you need to do to be successful in school. You need to get there on time. You need to do your work. You need to hand in the 5-point assignments. You need to study. If your student, son or daughter, is not listening to that, that's when a professional coach who's been trained to work with, kids who are atypical and who has more strategies than the way it works for me, that's when you call us.
Mhm. And what kind of like frequency do your coaches meet with families, or does it vary?
So about 2/3 of our students meet once a week with their coach. And then we have, the majority of the rest of that 1/3 meet twice a week. And then we do have some kids who really are struggling with school. They might have, learning differences and be below grade level and have ADHD or autism. And so we do have a 3-day-a-week model.
Mm,
Now, let me say this. Our coaches also check in between sessions. And that's another thing that distinguishes us from other people who are teaching or coaching executive functioning skills is that, if our student needs a check-in once a day, we'll do that. Now, we're not a reminder service, right? We're going to say, hey, what was it that you wanted to get done today? What was your goal for the day, right? We're not a reminder service. Don't forget to, we're asking those questions and prompting so the student is learning. How
mhm,
did the reminder on your watch work today?
mhm.
Like
How the
those,
tool we talked about work or not work, and what do we have to adjust and change from
right.
that, right?
Those check-ins are designed to build the skill of metacognition. Okay, let's think about how you're thinking and is it working for you?
Mm.
Yeah.
And
So
do kids show up only in person? I don't think so, right? Do you do in person and virtual, or how does that work?
we completely went to a virtual model before the pandemic because we did not want to be building 2 different models, right?
Okay.
We
Right,
knew that the majority of our clients were going to be online across the country. And you
right,
can't open up a coaching center everywhere a coaching center is needed. I mean,
right.
we have 150 kids across the United States. So we wanted to focus on building a virtual model that had all of the elements of our in-person model, that was relational, that was warm, that had a good connection with the parents, that
Mhm.
made the student feel at ease. And we worked on that, and we now have an 11-step process in each coaching session that nurtures that connection and relationship, as well as helps the student to set goals and assess, are they achieving their goals, as well as to build their executive functioning skills. So all of our coaches are following the same connected coaching model. And Karen, I'll tell you, last year out of, over 200 or 300 students, we had 2 for whom online didn't work. And they were both kids who had such severe social anxiety that they couldn't get on camera. So it wasn't our model. It really was. And we referred them both to, therapists and psychiatrists to work on the social anxiety
Yeah.
piece of things. But honestly, coaching, virtual coaching works great. It's like a meeting, but
Yeah.
it's a super fun meeting,
It's
right?
like this.
Kids get to talk about the things they're interested in, what they love to do. They
Right.
get set for their week, they get organized. Coaching is not something like adding, you
Right.
know, it's something that's going to help
Right.
your
A
student.
tool.
Yeah, yeah. And we see our once a week kids, we see them on Monday or Tuesday. So we look at that week. We're logged onto that school portal.
How
That's
long are those sessions
an hour.
typically? Okay. Okay. So
An hour. Yeah.
and
And
what are parents saying about the services at Russell Coaching?
oh my gosh. Like, I mean, why didn't I know you existed before? You know, that's one we get all the time. One that I love to hear is, you know, I had just about given up on my son or daughter. And now in working with the coach, I'm seeing that he or she is capable of getting things done independently. You
That's
know,
awesome. Yeah.
um, that I just love that. You know, I think another thing we hear a lot is my son or daughter feels so much better about themselves, you know, because we know nobody doesn't like to be doing their job well, right? And if you're in middle school or high school, your job is school. And if you're constantly getting negative feedback, that doesn't feel good. And so I love when parents say, I can tell that they just feel better about themselves. They
Yeah.
feel more confident. They don't feel as anxious or depressed because they're doing school well. And I love to hear that. I love to hear, and this is another common one, my relationship with my student is so much better, right?
Mhm.
Because when you as a parent have turned into the school reminder / nagging service, nobody likes that, right? The
Mhm.
parent doesn't like that, the kid doesn't like that, and fundamentally it doesn't really work, right? It does not work. And so when you come to the realization, hey, we actually need an expert here, the same way we need someone to look at the car and figure out the car, the same way we need a medical professional for medical diagnoses, right? The same way, you know, an executive in a new executive role needs an executive coach. When parents get to this realization where they're like, oh, I didn't even know such a thing as academic and ADHD coaching for students existed,
Right. Right.
right? And then they start with us and they're like, "Oh, I get to be the mom again, right?
Yes.
And our entire life does not revolve around, do you have your homework done? Did you
Right.
turn in the 5-point assignment? Did you redo the 10-point
Or
assignment?"
kids don't even listen to us. And
No.
then all of a sudden the magic happens and the teacher sets them in the kid and the parent's like, I've been saying that to them forever and they listen to you. It's just sometimes it's just somebody different it takes.
Well, and I think too, you know, there's some element of that that's they're not the parent, but I will say, and I'm going to brag on them for a little bit. The coaches at Russell Coaching all have, before they even come to us, they all have 8 to 10 years of experience directly working with students. Okay, we don't hire recent college graduates. They have 8 to 10 years of experience, and then they go through intensive training with me on ADHD, autism, anxiety, depression, on positive youth development, on coaching, on what our connected coaching model looks like. And so, you know, they have a lot of knowledge about the you know the how the brain is actually working, what is the reason for some of these behaviors, right? So that we can meet them where they're at. And then they have a lot of knowledge about, okay, how do I help this kid move forward? If you're the parent doing that, all you have is your one student, right? and
Right.
and your one experience.
Yes.
You have a coach from Russell Coaching, well, they've faced that 20, 30, 40, 50 times. So
Yeah.
they've got broad experience and
Right.
way more information than a parent has. So if it's working, great. But when it's not working, I'm just such a huge fan of coaching for especially middle school and high school kids, because it's early enough that we can make a difference, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
College, some of those patterns are solidified. You know, the family stress is so deep. The parents are, you know, really hopeless at times.
Doing the best they can, the best they know
Oh,
how.
for sure, for sure. But I would love, I would love to coach every single middle school student who has complex ADHD and just get them started in middle school with understanding their brain, understanding the symptoms of ADHD and whatever other neurodevelopmental disorder they have, understand their brain and how to work their brain. Because one of the problems we have, and you know this, and I'm not picking on schools, is that schools are built for typical kids. And so the kids that we specialize in, the kids that we know, the kids that we get, right? The kids who are our village, those are our people, right?
Right.
They go to school and they hear all these things. It doesn't work for them. And they're smart enough by the time they get to middle school and high school to know it's not going to work for them. And so really eats away at the self-esteem. When you get a coach, right? And you get someone who believes in you and who says, I've seen that before. My other students with ADHD struggle with that. My other kids who are on the spectrum also have a hard time with decoding directions for complex essays. And all of a sudden, it's like they're not alone. They're not alone. And they're not weird and they're not inadequate. They're learning about their brain. We watch YouTube videos about ADHD and autism. You know, we give parents a symptom tracker to track the symptoms to take to the doctor. This is one of the things that differentiates what we do from other practitioners is we are 100% bought into the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations and the fact that this needs to be a team approach. It just needs to be a team approach. And so we loop in school. We're the ones calling school. We'll loop in the therapist. We're the one asking for the release of information. We're the one sending the coaching notes over to the psychiatrist. I had a mom contact me this week. She's like, all right, we've been to the neurologist. We've been to counseling. He's been on medication. Nothing's working. I saw your post on Facebook. This is a mom I knew back in preschool. She's like, wow, I really want to talk with you. I was like, yep. And
what would you say is the difference between like therapy and Russell coaching?
Right. Okay. So therapy is designed to address those symptoms of mental health disorders and really work on mental health directly. Okay. Now, things get a little confusing because a lot of therapists are saying that they're doing coaching now because coaching is such a buzzword, right? But it's important to differentiate. Are you trained in positive youth development? Are you trained in positive psychology? Are you trained in ADHD or autism or whatever it is? Because even though coaching is not licensed, there are specific coaching principles, and so counseling is really about addressing the mental health issues, addressing what's caused that, right? Processing those feelings, combating the thoughts through, cognitive behavioral therapy. Coaching is really about building strategies and changing behaviors. Now, is there some overlap? For sure, there's some overlap. Our kids, I think, feel 1,000% better after they have a semester of Russell coaching. It's great, right? And sometimes a kid might need therapy and coaching, right? They need those practical executive functioning skills, study strategies, and they need to work on self-defeating thoughts from like a cognitive behavioral therapist. So yes, both are working toward better well-being, but it's really what is the client taking away that differentiates the two.
Absolutely. And so how can a parent find you?
So a parent can find us at Russell Coaching, 2 S's, 2 L's, russellcoaching.com. And all of our links to social media are on there. Karen, I've done about 40 guest appearances on podcasts in the last year or so. And we have every single one of those linked by topic on russellcoaching.com. And so for parents who are looking for information, and you know me, my style is warm, it's positive, it's encouraging. If you want to know, why is my kid lying, right? Why does my kid refuse to talk to me? Why can't my kid hand in the 10-point assignment? All of those kinds of things are covered on these podcasts that I've been doing for a year or so. So go to Russell Coaching, go to resources, take a look at the podcast, listen to something that catches your eye. And then we are right now registering students for fall academic coaching. So the best time to begin this is right when the school year starts. You're going to be sitting out there thinking, we're going to get through sixth grade just fine. I'll tell you what, a few months of coaching at the beginning of sixth grade can alleviate a lot of pain in seventh and eighth grade. So for those pivotal years, sixth grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, 11th grade, I'm just such a strong advocate. But also if your kid has a new diagnosis, right? If they've just gotten a diagnosis of ADHD or autism and they're learning how their brain operates, and let's talk about the parents here. If the parent is incredibly super frustrated and exhausted, right? Yeah. And parents aren't experts in ADHD and autism, right? And so, of course, you're not going to be an expert on how to help your kid with ADHD or autism be successful. It's like you break a leg, you don't do physical therapy with your kid, you take him to the physical therapist. There is a body of work and information that coaches have access to if they're well educated and they're doing their job right. And so, yeah, we're at Russell Coaching. We're on Instagram. We've got YouTube videos. We've got everything. And for your listeners today, because you and I have such a special, great relationship and collaboration, anybody who signs up for fall coaching, okay,
before 2023,
before the end of August, because, school started all different places. So if you sign up before August 30th, we're going to give you 10% off your first 3 months of academic coaching with us.
Thank you.
We don't do that on every podcast, but for you, Karen, and your parents, we want to help them get this resource. We don't want it to be another school year full of frustration. I just talked with a corporation today that I'm going to do a talk for their parent resource group at a pretty large corporation. And I was like, let's not do something about how to get organized and what baskets you need and what kind of pencil holders. Let's do something about, what do you want this year to mean? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like, right? How are you going to keep yourself sane? How are you going to have reasonable goals and expectations? Most important of all, how are you going to maintain connection with your child or your children or your teens this year? Because that's really what it's all about. It's not about the pencil holder. It's not about the loose leaf paper. It's not about the landing pad. It's about connection. And so that's why I want to encourage you to take a look at our page, because if your connection with your child or teenager is suffering because you are endlessly trying to get them to do their work, we would love to step in and teach them how to do their work and let you reconnect.
Yeah. So, Dr. Russell, thank you so much for coming on. I know we talk often and bring a lot of answers to parents' questions on this podcast, and I love every time that we meet. And because of these issues and concerns and the way parents are feeling keep coming in, I just wanted to take a moment and say, hey, listeners, if you know or if you're experiencing any area where you need help, this is a resource for you. And you might know someone who needs it, and let's share it with them, because sometimes it can feel like you're at a loss and you're trying things and you don't know what to do, or you feel like, this parent apparently is at one of the best schools and is still, had a rough and frustrating year. And if there's something that can help, awesome. And so that's why I just thank you for taking the time to share that with us today. And again, if you mention Momnificent, this podcast, when you call Russell Coaching for 2023 in the fall, 10% off the 3 months of the fall academic coaching. So again, thank you, Dr. Russell.
Oh my gosh, always so great to be on with you. I'm glad we've started back up our Thursday evenings, and we've got lots more to do. So I want to encourage everyone, send your questions in. Tell us what you need. Where are you struggling? And we'll be back soon.
Yes, we'll see you soon. Thank you.